So thank you so much, Barbara, for meeting with me. And I love talking to a fellow headhunter and career strategist. This is so fun. So I, I just bugged you because I wanted to learn your take on resumes and interviews. So first thing is, I'm curious to know, as a headhunter as you are, where do your eyes land first in a resume?
Oh, that's super simple.
Okay.
I absolutely go down the right-hand side and
Okay.
I just look really quickly at the dates to see if there's
Oh.
there's a lot of movement, right? And then there I just make a really quick, I mean, I don't think people understand how little people look at the resumes,
Yeah.
and how simple it needs to be. It needs to be super
Yes.
simple. I see those dates when I go down and I see the dates. Then I usually scan to the bottom, look at the education,
Yeah.
and honestly, I'll work my way back up. And again, that is if someone's resume actually keeps my interest.
Exactly. Of
Yeah.
course. So, two questions that come to mind. What would keep your interest? And also, if you're looking at the dates and you're realizing that there were some positions were very short-lived. I'm curious to know if the candidate wrote the reason why they had to leave that organization, if you would hang on a little bit longer to that resume.
Well, sure. If it's a
Mhm.
contract or if a company was acquired, merged, I think those should always be there again to help with that quick assessment. Uh,
Medical leave? What about if it's personal, like medical leave?
That would be a conversation that I would rather have in person. Okay.
Beautiful.
Because,
Okay.
how do you shape that narrative? And I always want to give people an opportunity because life does happen. And I'm
Yes.
always backing people that, there's some trials and tribulations, but there are some things where, it's the candidate and it's been an issue. But some of the things that keep me looking is, it's pretty clear the type of rigor it takes to get into top education institutions, to study top programs. I always say the holy grail is a degree in engineering and an MBA, for
Right.
certain roles, because that's difficult. But for
Yeah.
me, I actually really appreciate people who've been an elite athlete, a varsity athlete, because I know that adds a whole other level of rigor, being a student athlete, a whole level of understanding of ongoing failure all of the time,
Yes.
right? Picking yourself
Yes.
back up. So for me, take a quick look, have they played elite sports? What kind of education do they have? Because again, if you get into McGill, one of the top universities in the country, well,
Right.
I already know that you've worked hard and you're pretty
Hard to
smart.
get. Of
So
course.
then, we go from there. And I
Exactly.
would give
Love
people,
that.
let's say it was a very specific role or company I was trying to recruit from. Then I give people a pretty long leash from there,
Right.
and kind of dig a little further. But most times it's quick. And I don't know about you and your practice, but many, many roles are filled without a resume, right?
Yes,
Yeah, I mean, if you're
that's
good
true.
enough and you're the right person and we're trying to recruit you, so just make your resume super simple. I always say to people, you don't need to tell us everything you've ever done.
Exactly.
Tell us what you've done relative to this role because the everything can be a huge distraction. And clients can take a look at that resume and make a value assessment even quicker than we can as headhunters. So that's kind of my take on the resume. Super
Yeah.
simple.
Yeah, I love it. And I agree with your philosophy. That's for sure. And that's what I preach every day. So let's go into interviews. I'm curious to hear, like in simple terms, a good and a bad story when it comes to interviews. What tips can we give people out there from your experience of maybe, having witnessed that or been in a really bad interview, what tips we can give, and maybe what great interviews that you've come across that you can, tell people, look at that. That plays well, give an example of what really works well.
So I look at in terms of what we do at the headhunter level, we're screening people, right?
Yes. Yes.
So when I'm screening people, in my mind, I know what information I want to get out of it. And I want to get out of it a lot of information that I think could make something go sideways
Right.
as this progresses, right? I like to know where people live, what their maybe their family obligations are, a whole bunch of different things that might seem a little odd to the person being interviewed. But if I've reached out to someone as a headhunter, I'm already thinking their background aligns, right? So I really want to get some specific, let's say it's a very technical skill, right? I'll ask very specific questions there. So I would say for the most part, I've been pretty lucky. I've had a lot of, terrific interviews. I do like it when people just, dress a little bit nicer,
Yes, yes,
no hoodies and
100%.
baseball caps, on backwards. But again, in today's world, we tend to be a bit more casual. They absolutely have done their homework.
Hmm.
Look at the people in the
Yeah,
company on LinkedIn, look at the website, and always come prepared with some very thought-provoking and challenging questions that demonstrate, you've given this some thought. What I
exactly.
will say, same as the resumes, I'm adamant that I want people to answer the question that I've asked them, nothing
Right,
more. And because
right.
the 5-minute answer, when I'm trying to get X amount of information out, and you're just going on and on and on and on, you've lost me. And now I
Exactly,
start to worry, can I put you in front of a client? So I do
exactly.
a mix of coaching people when we're interviewing, even if they're not going to move forward for this role. I try to put a little
Right.
goodness out, into the universe
Absolutely.
with every
Absolutely.
interaction, right? So,
Absolutely.
very simple, because oftentimes the next part of someone's answer could eliminate them from the opportunity. They've shared too
Exactly.
much, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
So keep it succinct. And if people just cannot present well, they cannot interview well, or during the screening interview, even if I felt that they had the skill set, right? As a headhunter and recruiter, we're judged
Yeah.
on so many different levels.
We
And
so are.
so,
We are. We are. We
yeah.
absolutely are. So, in terms of if they don't present well, I personally have had situations where people present themselves in interviews for positions that are, executive level or high management. And, they are in a baseball cap, or the women come in a little camisole and looks like they just came out of the shower. Literally, I've had that happen, hair in a bun, very messy, you know, how do you how do you handle that? I can tell you how I handle it. I would love to know how you handle that.
Um,
I
you
mean, I
know,
know yeah, but go ahead. I'm
I
curious.
try not to be too judgmental, because truthfully,
No,
sometimes I say, oh, today I'm wearing my favorite designer, Under Armour, and tomorrow I'm going to wear my second favorite designer, Nike. I
sure.
think if somebody were, early stage recruitment, they started with, I'm not really interested in making a move, they're in
Okay,
the driver's seat.
sure.
I'm a little more
Lenient.
lenient. But if they
Yes.
are unemployed and they're sitting on their couch and we're
Yes.
having this conversation, there's no
Yes.
leniency. So it
Exactly.
really is situational. And I
Yes.
might, score that individual mentally in my
Yes.
mind a lot of
Mm,
different ways, where their typos on
right.
the resume. I'm super, one of the tips I always give people, tips on their resume. So let's say, for example, I do a
Mm,
screening interview and they haven't sent me a resume yet. I'll say, based on our conversation here today, I would like you to send me a custom version of your resume. If that comes within 1 minute of our conversation, that's not good. You did
no.
not take a look at that resume. So I try to gauge how quickly people get back to me, all of these different touch
Yes.
points, their messaging, the response time, because each single interaction tells us something about how they'll be in the role. So I
100%.
factor that in
Yes.
to how people present themselves.
Right.
And
I
so if there's too many X's, it's
Yeah,
an X.
it's an
So,
X. Did you ever, I have in my situation, in some of the situations, I have addressed it. If their resume was wonderful and they seem to have the qualifications, and it's just sitting, it's now frustrating me that you showed up this way, I do approach it gently, and I'll say, it was really great meeting with you, and I really appreciate your time. Now, my client is going to ask me for an update on your profile. And in this office, they do have a very strict dress code. So, I will address the elephant in the room, and I say, obviously today you showed up in our interview, because it is an interview, our interview very casually dressed, just fine. But are you comfortable in a setting where there is a strict dress code, where you need to wear a blouse, you need to wear, nylons or whatever. So I sort of like attack it, not attack it, but address it this way just to assess, because maybe the person does want to be casual after all, and it won't be great for my client, right?
Yeah.
Because
Well,
I cannot risk sending you to my client. Now, how are you going to look in front of my client,
I
So,
mean, that sounds wonderful. I will say I try to thread, a needle or a very fine line
yes.
um, to let people hang themselves a little. So, like, I
Okay.
will tell my clients that I'm not providing people as much coaching as you think,
Right.
'cause I want the real person
Oh, for
to
sure.
show up.
For
Because,
sure.
of course, as headhunters, we're guaranteeing their success. And so
Absolutely.
I don't want so it's a fine line. And again, I'm just using years of experience to determine that.
Yeah.
So I might coach them a little, but not too much.
Yeah. No,
So
and exactly. And I don't coach them either. I just want to make sure that you're okay being
yeah,
dressed up. I want to hear, then I might hear, I'll assess how they respond to that. So they might apologize. They might say, "Yes, I'm so sorry. I was caught in this jam," or
yeah,
okay, then I take note of that. That's fine. Um, because sadly, I feel there's a little bit of oh, um, a diminished respect sometimes when it comes to interviews with headhunters and recruiters. There's so much ghosting that has gone on, sadly, on both ends. So I think sometimes the individual says, "Oh, it's another headhunter. It's the fifth headhunter this week that I'm meeting, whatever. Baseball cap, let's go. Let's hear the story of what they have to offer me." So
mhm,
I've noticed that a little bit of that malaise, as they say in French. Um, but anyway, that's how I address it, just to see how they answer, and to make sure that they're happy in a culture that you need to be dressed up. And sometimes they'll tell me, "Laura, let's meet in an hour. You'll see I do own a jacket." I said, "No, that's fine.
yeah,
I trust you. So that gives me the
go from
check
there.
mark. They get the check mark back, right? So this is great. Barbara, I have taken so much of your time already. This has been so insightful, so great. Thank you so much for your time today. And the tips, I hope that this video gets listened to or viewed, because the tips are just they're fabulous tips, and it just leads to success. So
Awesome. Thank you so much, Laura. Have a
thank
great day.
you. You
Okay.
too.
Bye bye.